Today you're going to be making a kaleidoscope name. First thing you'll need is a piece of computer paper and scissors. So to start off, we need our piece of paper to be in a square. So we're going to start by cutting off the excess paper. So in order to do that in a square, we need to create a square. So we're going to take this corner, the upper right hand corner, pull it down, line up the edge, the top edge with the side edge, and then make sure it folds right into the corner. So I always just fold that corner and then line it up on this edge. Then I hold this right here and I slide my hand that way. That usually gives a pretty good seam. Okay, from there, we need to get rid of this piece of paper. So you can do it two ways. You can draw a line, trace it, and then you can open it and cut it, or you can just cut along here, along the edge of the paper. So we get rid of this piece of paper, open it up. Now you've got a square with a diagonal line. So you're going to take those two diagonal line corners, turn it so it's straight up and down, fold this corner to this other corner. So you should have to see the line in the middle of your triangle. You just line those up and then just slide your hand. Now sometimes it slides a little bit, so like right here, I'll kind of adjust it a little bit. So now you have 4 triangles. So once you have your 4 triangles, you're going to fold the paper in half the other way. So you'll have a line here and a line here. So you take those 2 corners and match them up on this bottom line here. And you slide your hand So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 triangles. Okay, so each one of these triangles is going to have your name written in it, but we have to draw out our name first. So we'll start by folding this back up. So you just fold it in half, and then fold it in half. This is going to be our first canvas. When you have your triangles all folded up, this is when you're going to start drawing your name. So when you are drawing your name, you need to keep thinking about where the folds are in the paper, because you want to make sure that your letters go off the edges where the fold is. So right here is your fold, right here is your fold. This is a raw edge, meaning it is not folded, it's just the edge of the paper. So when you're drawing out your name, you want to make sure that the letters hit that fold, but they stay open on the edges. So depending on what you're going to write, depending on what word you're going to write, since you guys are going to be writing your own name, I'm just going to write you. So I'm going to start by lightly penciling in my letter. So that'll be my Y. And then I'm going to do the O, but I'm going to start the O around the edges. So they'll kind of hit the bottom, and just draw it as if it's going to go off the edge, but keep it just barely off the edge. So just a little bit of it would come off. That way it leaves it open on the bottom, and it'll make for a more interesting shape when you're done. So I'm just going to do a really big O. And then I'm going to do a thin U, and I'll show you why I'm doing that in just a second. So there's U. I'm just writing it as like a quick penciled in line. Okay, so to make these a little bit thicker, I'm going to go trace around the edges of them and on the inside of them. So I'm going to go off the edge here, and come up here, then go off the edge again. I'm just tracing around the U. I'll come down here and do the same thing. So once I've done that, I can come in and erase that inside line that I made before. So now I have a big U here. So I made it kind of thick. So up here, it just goes off the edge where the fold is. Goes off the edge on the raw edge as well. And it also goes off the fold here. So you'll see when you start doing the mirror image of this, this is going to meet up and it's going to come out that way, so that everything will be connected. You want your letters to go off the edges here, so they'll be connected to the letter on this side, which will make a little more sense when we get to that point. So I'm going to trace around my Y. This is the only time you have to draw it. The rest of the time you're going to be tracing. So do the best you can here, and then after that you'll continue tracing it, and it'll look that much better. If you just quickly scribble it out just to get it over with, it's going to look quickly scribbled out all throughout the entire project. So you want to take your time here and get it the way you like it. Okay, it does not matter which way you hold the paper. You can write your name this way. You can turn it this way and write your name. It doesn't matter as long as you keep your letters overlapping the edges right here, the folded edges, as if they're going off the edges. If you write it in the middle of your paper like this, nothing's going to connect, and it's just going to be 8 triangles with the word U on them, or whatever word you use. So once you get it to this point, you can start drawing over it with the Sharpie. The Sharpie can bleed through, so it's a good idea to open it up before you start tracing it. And when you are tracing it, you want to stop on the line. Do not go past the crease in the paper. I'm just going to put a piece of paper under it so I don't bleed through to the table. If you have your paper on a table or something, you probably want to put something underneath it just so you don't mark up the table. Okay, so I'm just using this thin point Sharpie. You guys should have one in your kit. And then I'm just going to start at the line and I'm going to trace it out. Now I'm ready to start tracing this image onto all of the other triangles. So this takes a few different steps. You'll need something that will reflect light. If you have like a light table, which most people don't, you could use that, like a tracing table. Some people have had success using an iPad, but usually that just keeps moving the picture and stuff, so it's hard. But if you have a way to turn the iPad onto a solid color like white, then you can use that. My kids have this weird little table that they got with like a kit, like an art kit, but it actually works pretty good for tracing. Most people would use a window. So if you don't have any of those things, a window is a really easy way to do it. Sorry, there's a spotlight on there. Okay, so I have this little table. Now you would take it to the window and do it that way, but just because I'm filming this, it'll be a little bit easier to do it this way. So I'm going to fold it where I can see the design. So then I'm going to trace it. That's why we did it in Sharpie first. Okay, you can see that I traced the whole thing. I went off the edges just like on the original one. Actually, this one's cut off a little bit right here, so I'll do it. You want to try to trace it exactly the way the rest of it is traced. If you change it a lot, it's going to change your entire image. It's going to look lopsided, so you want to make sure you trace it the best you can. Go off the edges just like I did before. Try to keep it clean. So now that I've done one, I need to find another triangle that I can trace. So I'm going to open it and then fold it again. So now I have another one I can trace. We're going to keep repeating this until we run out of triangles that we can trace. Just do it carefully and precisely. And remember, don't draw anything on the corner's edge. Just go off the edge just like it does in the original. Make sure you're stopping at the line as well, just like the original triangle. So now that I've done another one, I need to fold it again and find another spot I can trace. So there's another one here. Okay, so now you can see that there's no other spot. I've already traced that one. I traced that one. You can't really fold it anymore and trace any more spots. So that means you actually need to trace one of the ones that you traced. So I want to get this one. So if it's dark enough, I can do it this way. That's kind of light. So what I'm going to do is go over another one with Sharpie. Now, this is where you have to be really careful. Just make sure you meet up the points. Go over a second one. And you can kind of start seeing these shapes emerge. So here you've got almost like a heart shape. Okay, now I have two pieces with the dark pen. So and then I can trace the rest of them using this other piece. So I'm just going to flip it this way, bring my light tool back. For you guys, you'd probably go back to the window, and I'm just going to go over it again with pencil. Sometimes you might have areas that don't match up perfectly. It just depends on how well you folded it in the beginning, and mine was like a teeny tiny bit off. So you can kind of fudge it a little bit. You don't want two ends coming together in different spots. Like you don't want something like this. You don't want anything open. So just do the best you can to sort of eyeball it and try to get the two ends together. And try to make it even so it looks the same on both sides. Like this one looks a little bit off. And this might happen when you're tracing a lot of different shapes. Okay, now it's starting to come together. Now you're starting to see all of the pieces morph into a design instead of a word. Now you can't really tell that it was a word to begin with, unless you're really looking for it. So I'm looking around to see if there's any places I missed. It does look like I missed a little spot here, so I'm going to try to just check that real quick. You can see it through the paper, so there we go. Okay, once it looks good and I've cleaned it up, I've made sure all the ends kind of meet together. You really want to make sure you don't have anything that doesn't meet up. And then you're going to go over the whole entire thing with your Sharpie. Remember, again, put something under your paper because you can really mess up a table with a Sharpie. So I'm going to go over this entire thing with Sharpie, and then we'll be able to color it. Okay, so now I have traced all of my lines. I'm going to go over it real quick with an eraser and clean up some of those lines that are showing that are pencil. You don't have to do this if you're going over with marker, but I like to clean it up before I get started. Okay, now that I have my whole design laid out, I need to think about colors. So each section is going to be the same color throughout. So these are connected, so this is one big shape, which is going to stay one big color. If you do one of these shapes, like the inside of something or one little isolated shape, it needs to stay consistent throughout the design. So all of these would be the same color. So I'm going to start coloring it and then filling in all these different colors, and then we'll see how it looks. Okay, so I have finished coloring. I just want to point out a couple things. Um, it's a good idea to repeat colors sometimes to kind of bring it together. So I did use like the same purple here and here, the same pink, the same pattern I added here, I added over here. Also, you'll notice that I did all of these creases with the same pattern. So I made sure it was exactly the same all the way around. If you do something totally different, it's going to throw off the symmetry of the entire thing. As you can see looking at this, you really can't tell what it said to start with. It really looks kind of like hearts or something, and maybe fishtails, I don't know. But if you want to impress your friends, you can fold it back up and then you can see you still have the word there, you. So normally we would mount these on a piece of paper, but we don't really have those supplies. If you do have a piece of paper, you could use like a black piece of paper or something. You can glue this on there and it'll keep it flat and it'll look really good. So that's it for this project. And hopefully you're having fun.